28th.
All right, today's May 28th. It's approximately 2:15. Sorry for the delay. Bob and I and Joel were talking about some issues, and then I had a few minutes with my staff, so I apologize for the slight delay. We're here to start talking about the successor agreement for fiscal year 2015-16. As everybody knows, the current collective bargaining agreement expires September 30, 2015 of this year, so we need an agreement that will begin on October 1st. It would be fantastic if we were able to come to terms and get something signed in time to implement it by October 1st. So that would be a first in a very long time for the city of Daytona Beach, but it's a worthy goal to have. So with that, being this our first meeting, what we thought we would do is listen to what the Teamsters were looking for in the contract for the upcoming year. We have had a couple labor management meetings over the past couple of months and talked about a few things. I imagine maybe some of those will come up because when we were in those meetings, we said, no, that's really more of a thing for collective bargaining, so let's preserve that for that. So with that, is there a sign-in sheet going around? Okay. And that's really just for the parties. That's not necessarily anybody in the audience. Nobody in the audience has to sign in. That's for the bargaining teams. With that, Bob, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank everybody for coming.
Is this the Magna Carta?
That's your down there.
Wait for Gary. Gary's a slow one.
You guys double up on this salary? Stick around or double up? Yeah. Frank, you and Mark.
Yeah, but we'll go ahead and get some stuff going.
No, just window. Keep the pen. Hey!
Jim, last year we were told that the city would not be ready to address major pay concerns until the year 2016. We know there's calls out there for pay plan studies. You and I have discussed on multiple occasions some of our options. Without any clear-cut direction yet, without any city budget meetings, without any direction from the commission, we've gone ahead and we've asked for a 3-year contract with general wages stated, general wage increases stated at 5% for each one of those years. PD received no raises in 08, 09, 10, and 12 due to the recession years. They suffered pension cuts in years 2011 and 2014.
Question for you, Bob.
Sir.
On when you say 5%, is that moving the range, or are these moves within the range?
Within the range, freezing the bottom level for right now. The second asterisk is a Me-Too agreement should the city agree to a higher wage increase with another bargaining unit or city employees, and or the implementation of a pay plan study should where wage compression is addressed agency-wide. That's all self-explanatory, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that real soon. Number 2 is a night shift differential increase from 50 cents to 75 cents. One of the complaints we've heard from the administration was there's not enough veterans on the night shift. We need to incentivize going to the night shift. And if you look at number 3, which should be the first handout, that was the night shift incentive program you and I have been talking about, that incentivizes veteran officers with 8 or 10 years on to go to the night shift. If you want to take a minute reading it.
This was one of those items that we were going to discuss at Labor Management and decided it'd probably be better off to bring to an actual bargain. But I did see what you were looking at. And in fact, I had Wayne cost it out just to see if we were close, and It's similar, but it's not real close because you did your cost estimates on the $2 for anybody with, what is it, under like 8 years?
Yes.
Gets $2 extra to work the night shift, plus, all right, just so I'm on the same page. Night shift gets you 75 cents an hour. Then, if you're 8 years or over, I'm sorry, if you have at least 8 years, up to 10 years, you get an additional $2 per hour, plus an additional 50 cents an hour.
Correct.
All right. And then if you're a 10-year officer, you get $2.75 an hour, plus that extra 50 cents an hour.
Correct.
I understand the proposal.
And that's keeping if the shift differential remains at 50 cents, that's,
Oh, that's what I'm asking you,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it?
right.
just
This is
missing it.
without a change to the shift differential. If you want to implement a night shift incentive program, this would go into effect, leaving the shift differential the same. But if you want to raise the shift differential, I'll just bump everything up 25 cents.
Okay,
So it's not $75, $2.50.
basically you're offering me two proposals. One is just change the night shift differential to 0.75 cents, 75 cents an hour. Or if you want to put in a seniority-based incentive program, or I guess it would be in addition to then?
Yes.
Okay, it's not two separate.
Right, and I can recost out if we do go to a 75-cent shift differential. But I kept the hours all productive, and Wayne will probably tell you, so that my numbers are going to be a little bit higher than what I have on the bottom. It does not allow for a vacation, holiday, sick leave.
Well, you use 40 and as you know, it's a 42. So
Correct.
when we cost it, we cost it with the built-in overtime in it.
Right.
So, 50 cents turns into 75 cents for those 2 hours,
Right.
for the overtime hours. I came up with a total, if we used, for argument's sake, if I had 12 officers at the 8-year incentive, that would cost me $67,000 a year, or $5,590 per officer. And I'll give you a copy of these, Bob.
All right.
It's Wayne's magic numbers, but
Some talking points on the night shift incentive program. It incentivizes veterans going to the night shift.
right.
It keeps the city from disrupting 200-plus lives. People, a lot of years, people been out there on the night shift waiting to get that seniority so they could go to a day shift. Also, you have folks with daycare issues, childcare issues, working second jobs, employment outside the city. Just some talking points on going to this program. It minimizes the damage to any type of morale and incentivizes actually going to night shift. I put a provision there that the chief could select who goes in. This way you don't get the officer who wants to just, the typical slug who doesn't want to work. This will give the chief the ability to pick and choose who would be part of this program.
So there's 4 different night shift platoons, battalions, whatever you guys call them over there.
Yes, sir. ABC.
So you're saying 3 senior positions per shift the chief
and
could fill, which would be a total of 12.
And I left the provision for more if the chief so decides.
Are you suggesting this is a minimum? Would the chief have to fill 3 this way?
This is negotiations. If you come
Okay.
back and you say, listen, we like this, how about 10 people? I'm all ears. We'll talk about it. I think 12 is the number. It gives you 3 people per shift.
Okay.
Number 4 is SWAT team.
Okay.
I've spoken with my predecessors, Jeff Candy, Scott Franz, Ed Slater. They've been trying to get Squad A raise or a 5% increase for years, going way back. He says there's some type of entrenched mentality where the city just doesn't want to give in on that. We've been asking, myself, since the first day I've arrived at the table, we've been asking for a 5% pay increase on Squad. I just need to know, but I don't know if you know, is there an entrenched mentality where SWAT is just not considered a specialized unit for, there are folks in the city that are opposed to it?
No, that's not the case. I mean, last year, when obviously, since I've been here, you have been proposing this. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, because we did cost it out last year and the year before, and it seemed like some people with a 5% would actually lose a couple of dollars. However, the majority of them would get more money. So 5%, what you're suggesting is the stipend for being on the SWAT team would now be a percentage of your base pay rather than a set fee. The reason the city is more in line with a set fee is because if being on SWAT is worth X, then everybody gets X. But the way, if it's a percentage, if there's an officer at his top out that's making $63,000 and he'll get, you know, $3 grand a year for being on a SWAT, and if somebody's in their 5th year making $40,000, they get $2 grand for being on SWAT, yet they're running into the same house.
Right.
So we were kind of looking at it as SWAT pays X. Now, are we open to look at the $12.50? Yes. The answer to that is yes. I mean, last year we just added the clandestine, the lab group, the meth lab guys.
Yes.
Added them and gave them the $12.50 stipend. We put some alternates on the crime scene that would now get the pay for being on call. So I would say the city is open to seeing what that dollar figure is. I mean, I'm not suggesting we're going to go straight from a flat fee to a 5% stipend. I'll certainly have Wayne run those costs for us again and see what those numbers are. But what I would almost rather do is say, if it's 5% that you're looking for, what I could do is see what it would cost on the current members of SWAT. And I know that's a moving target. You got guys that go on, guys that come off, etc. But it would give me a round number to try to look at it. And we could say, okay, what's 5% of that? If everybody on the SWAT got 5%, what would that pot of money be, divided by each member, divided by the 52 weeks, and see what that number is. I'd still say the city would be more inclined to do a flat fee. So instead of going straight to a 5%, I could see us moving, whether it's 13, 13.50, 14, moving up in a flat fee to determine what that extra stipend might be, what the pay for that might be. But I'll listen, I see your proposal. I'll have Wayne cost it out like we always do, and we'll take a peek at that. I mean, it just seems a little bit unfair when, if I've been here a long time, I'm running in the same house, that guy that's been here longer than me is making the same money, and I'm at the same risk of running into the house. So that's all we were looking at. So I'd be more inclined to keep it with a flat fee, but let's just figure out, is our flat fee enough these days? Or has $12.50 that we established 15 years ago or 10 years ago, is that past time to look at?
The last cost projection, and I might have it with me, was $28,000 for the unit. There's 21 officers in SWAT?
There are, I believe, 19.
19.
I believe right now. That includes.
Yeah, but it was, and I appreciate the effort on the cost out, and most of the time you guys are pretty dang close to the cost out. But I got to rely on my guy on our side to run those numbers and make sure comp and FICA. I'm sorry?
Trust us.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, why didn't I think of that?
It is a bone of contention. It's a large unit. It's, 21, 19, a lot of guys, and they are on the front line. And
I don't know. Anybody quick math? What's $12.50 a week get me for a year?
$600.
$600.
they have to maintain.
So if we were to raise that, and this isn't a proposal, I'm just thinking of scenarios out loud. If we raised it to $1,000 a year divided by 52, I don't know what that math comes to.
We were thinking more along the lines of like $2,080, which would give them $40 a week.
40 a week for activated time only, or any time?
That's their number, $40 a week from $12.50.
But only, okay, so you're saying it would just be 40 bucks a week for
Something
being
like
on the
that, I
SWAT
think.
team, whether they were
That would probably be
activated
a
and
little
called
bit-
into action or
That
not.
would be a little bit more reasonable for these guys, for them to be more comfortable in their position and where they would.
From $12.50 a week to 40 a week.
Well, that was only, when did they start getting that? 10 years.
I hear you,
About the
just,
time,
Yeah.
about the time I came
I
on the
mean,
team, till 4.
They've gotten
That
nothing,
was 06.
you know, and I think at this point, you know, we need to give them something that's more reasonable, that's more in contention with other teams around the country. You know, other teams around the country getting 5%. 5% would be somewhere in the area of $2,000 to $3,000, $2,000, $2,080, $40 a week, roughly.
well, 5% for the base, well, I guess it is close, I was gonna say it's 1,500, but it's around 1750 or whatever it is, 5%.
They have to maintain physical fitness year-round. They have to
Without a
be
doubt.
proficiency with their equipment, their weapons.
You don't have to sell me
I mean, we rely on these guys
the
for
ex-
everything every day.
expertise and the capabilities of the specialized unit. I understand.
They're on call 24/7. They're out.
Listen, as I tell you guys often, my job is to put a price tag on what is priceless service to the community. There's no doubt about that. And I don't just say that to blow smoke up your rear ends. At the end of the day, you're the guys running into the houses, catching the bad guys. I'm the guy that gets to review your camera stuff at the end of the day, go, I wonder if they should have done that differently. So I get it. You're on the front lines. And however, the hard part of what we have to do, just like school board has to decide what to pay teachers, and we got to decide what to pay for police and firefighters and everybody else that serves the city, and make sure our drinking water is good when we turn it on in the morning, and when we flush the toilet. There's people in the city that are making that happen, and when you turn on the water fountain and drink delicious water that's not going to kill you, that's a good service provided by city employees. And so we've got to put a price tag on it, when at the end of the day, when I'm hiding under my bed, I call Bob Walker and his team going, hey, there's somebody outside my house, and you guys go look for him. So I get it.
And Mark, you
So,
go for-
but just, you know, it's sticker shock when you go 1250 to 40 in a week. That's, I mean, there's some sticker shock there.
But they've gotten nothing since that was in the
I hear
inception
you.
of it.
That's right.
Did you say since 2004?
06. When I came on the team, it was 06, and that's right at the time we started 1250. Right.
Was there anything?
Actually, it was $25 every other week. I just realized that's too difficult.
Yeah, for
1250
payroll.
a week.
That's true. That is absolutely correct. It was 25 every other week, and then it was like, why don't we just do 1250 a week, call it a day? And I'd still rather do something like that too, by the way. Instead of, if we change something, I think we just call it a weekly stipend. As long as the city's going to be paid weekly, we'll just call it a weekly stipend.
Would you be open to an increase in just their, like, kind of like FTOs get $1 an hour? Would you be open to, and I'm not saying $1 an hour, but I'm saying, would you be open to just adding a figure to their hourly rate?
Yeah, I'm open to however we think is best to compensate them for that service. Whether we come up with, just like you said, FTOs, get the extra pay. This is kind of like that, because I want to say this is included in their base rate of overtime when we calculate overtime. You know, so it's in there for FLSA overtime purposes already. It's just easy to say it's $12.50, and it doesn't increase the base rate of pay. So if somebody calls and goes, hey, what's Tom Jones make? We don't have to go, well, we just give him the base pay. We don't go, oh, but then he gets, you know, if he was getting a 5% stipend for SWAT, that would be in his pay. If he was getting 5% for whatever else, it would be in his pay. So it might look like his base pay is higher, but it really isn't. He's still making the same $36.7, but he takes the extra, or she takes the extra incentive to be on the SWAT team, be on the meth lab team, whatever other teams you got at motors. I don't know. Well, they get some different for being on motors and K9 and all that, but.
I understand that the sticker shock aspect of this, but I think we need to look at it from the perspective since 2006, it's gotten one hell of a lot more dangerous for police officers. Whether you're road patrol, whether you're SWAT.
I can't argue with that. I mean,
the statistics are alarming, to say the least.
I will say this, and I don't have any stats in front of me to back it up, but I think with the training and expertise and the guidance of the command staff and your frontline SWAT sergeant, lieutenant, because we started paying the lieutenant some money last year. The SWAT lieutenant didn't get any money till it was either last year or year before. So we felt that was a bit unfair, so we fixed that. But I think they do a good job of deciding when to put our officers in true harm's way. Listen, even on a perimeter in harm's way on certain circumstances. But I don't know that our injury rate is any higher for those deployed in a SWAT. Maybe it is. I don't know the answer to that.
We can ask Jeff Cahill.
Who?
Jeff Cahill.
Well, listen, I'm not suggesting there hasn't been an injury. I mean, I'd say right now I got 12 officers on light duty based on workers' comp calls. I don't know if they're all
And what
It's
we
a
do-
dangerous gig.
What we do is we put them in the highest risk area
That's right,
all the time.
that's right.
So the highest risk, they go first.
Yeah,
We call them to do the highest risk stuff.
that's right, without a doubt. I agree wholeheartedly. But they don't just willy-nilly send them in. Boom, send them in, you know.
Well, no, they're planning and training. And
That's right.
cases with-
And that's all I'm suggesting. I mean, I send guys into burning buildings and we bring them out safely. I mean, so there's training and expertise that goes into that. There's no doubt about that. But long story short is, the city is open to looking at that stipend amount. You know, I appreciate you starting at a 40 or a 5%. I'm willing to look at that.
And we're
And
just
let's
saying that
face
we
it, at the
think-
end of the day, at some point, I'm gonna be given a pot of money, if you will. So at some point, the budget's gonna be going forth, and it's gonna say, employees will get X, or we're gonna budget X amount of money for employee increases. What I will tell you is, we will bring that pot of money in here and try to divvy up in ways that best fit your needs. I think salary ranges are pretty good. I think your minimums are pretty good, and I think your maximums are pretty good. I think where we're short is where officers are within that range. So if you're here 7 years or less, you're probably still at the bottom rung. That's not true. If you were hired after December 2014, you are at the bottom rung. The next group of 1 year to 8 year officers are basically sitting at 2% higher than that, or maybe it's 3%, whatever it is, 3% higher than that. So if there's a shortfall in our pay plan, I think it's where officers are. And just a little background, so you know, we're prepping to be able to give you a proposal in the near future is 96 of your officers, plus I want to say 4 sergeants, are under 8 years of service, which means all of them have been here during that time period and probably have not received one raise within the range. They're all sitting at the bottom of the range. Therein lies what the city needs to fix. So when I'm given that pot of money, what I'm going to do is, whether they approve me 2%, 1.5%, 3%, 15%, whatever they approve me to do, I'm going to take that pot of money and try to figure out how much can I give the 8-year guy, the 7-year guy, the 6-year guy, the 5-year guy, the 4-year guy, to kind of get some separation. It won't fix it 100%. You can't fix 8 years worth of no raises in 1 year. You just can't do it. But what I will try to show is, let me try to get some separation, which is what we did for the 1st year and the 2nd year guys last year. We froze those hired after December, so there'd be some separation between the brand newbies and the guys that are the employees that have been here a year or more. So all I would say is, you know, the whole point of that long drawn out story is, I only get so much money to work with. So if we give $40 a week to SWAT and X more money for the lab crew that runs into to meth labs, which probably earn it as well, I'm running out of money for the fixes to try to separate the compression issues, because it is a finite amount of money that I get to work with. So,
You know, oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Do you know at this point if the city's going to be looking at proposing a 1, 2, 3-year deal?
I will tell you, we will entertain anything up to the 3 years under law, but the safest bet, I would say right now, is a 1-year deal. Because I don't know that the city will have the security. You know, it's not like it was a dream negotiating collective bargaining agreements in 96 through 2005, maybe 04. Because every deal was a 3-year deal, and you put in there whether it was a 3%, 4%, 5%, whatever, a merit increase throughout there, that just stayed in the contract, as you all know, because you fought like heck to not lose it, yet you lost it. But that was almost a guarantee, and then you kind of put a Me Too, basically, of whatever the COLAs everybody gets, we get that, and then we move within the range every year. So you can have a 3-year deal. Everybody was fat and happy. Property values are blowing up. Homestead had just started, so there's really no cap on the 3% of what you know, the taxation would be on property, so it was easy to negotiate contracts. It wasn't if you were gonna get raises, it's how much are we gonna give you this year? I mean, it was no, you know, we were given 8 and 12 back in the good old days. And then, you know, we go 2006 to present, I think you guys got 3 this year, 2 last year, and the last raise before that, as you mentioned, Bob, in your opening, was 4% in 2011, and then all the way back to 08 is where you gotta go to find any increases whatsoever. So I don't think it's that we don't know that has happened. I mean, we know that's happened, and we know over the course of those years, you guys took tremendous hits, police and fire, in the pension benefits. There's no doubt about that. The good thing about that is that thing's hovering at 78.5% funded. Not actuarial, in real dollars. Actuarially, we're 75 point whatever funded. But in real dollars, according to my auditor, which is in the big scheme of things, that's the only guy I care about what that person says. He says I'm 78.5% funded. So if everybody left today, I got 78.5%, which everybody, you know, we kind of talk about that 80% as being the, woo, if you're in the 80% range, you're solid. And now, as you guys know, the Senate Bill 172 passed this year. So the Naples letter is gone, effectively. So I'm sure as we speak right now, your pension board attorney is drafting up the creation of your defined contribution plan in conjunction with your defined benefit plan, that the city will have to use those extra premium tax revenues to fund your defined contribution plan on top of continuing to fund your defined benefit plan. And that would have been, just so you know, that would have been $379,000 this year that we could have offset our pension contribution. So instead of being 6.7, it would have gone down to 6.4-ish, somewhere in there, which is a long way from 8.1 back in the bad old days. So the benefit changes that you have whether agreed to or had forced upon you or whatever are working, and working in the regard of funding. I can see the wheels turning. We can't hire anybody anymore, but it's working. But it's working to get the city's costs down as far as the pension goes. So we got that going for us out there as well. So we're going to have to fund that pension. So there's some money out of the pot, if you will, that's going to have to be used instead of offset from my contribution, which is directly out of the general fund. That's going to be whatever half of 379 is. I'm no math major, but I want to say about 180, 185, somewhere in there. That I won't have in the general fund now, because I was offsetting that entire amount and I would have had that money in the general fund. Now I don't have that money in the general fund. It's going to be in your defined contribution account. How that works, I don't know. Lee Diener is a much smarter guy than I am, and I'm sure they're going to propose the pension ordinance that'll make that change. But the point of that whole thing was, we only have X amount of dollars, and I will certainly negotiate with you guys. If it's put it all in night shift people, that's where we'll put it. Well, that's not true. Listen, I got to look out for the city overall. If you say just give it all to Dan Diaz, which would be a travesty, I'm not going to agree to that. But within reason, we'll bargain in good faith, and we'll chop up that money however you see fit, or you know, obviously we're going to have to look at that. I mean, I'm not just going to give 5 people all the money. That's just not going to happen. But if something reasonable, we're in.
This is kind of I know Bob's not through with his bullet points, but when do you think we'll be back together? Is there any thought of that?
It's really hard to say, and because I don't know when the final, I don't know if that's the right word, the numbers, the taxation numbers come out July 1. That's when the official numbers come from the tax collector or tax appraiser or property appraiser's office to let us know your property value is going to be X based on this millage rate. Then our budget guy is able to go, okay, property value is X, millage rate this, we're going to have this much money. So, you know, obviously we started the budget process, I don't know, April-ish. You know, we're several weeks into it. So we're already looking at the budget, and at some point, whenever that point is, it'll be discussed of how much should we allocate for employee increases. Now, general employees, that's kind of decided by the board, or actually through the city manager, who could recommend to the commission, hey, I think we ought to just raise ranges 1% this year and give the other, because they're in the same boat as you guys. I'm not quite as concerned, quite honestly, because I do think a 4 and 5 and 6 year officer is more value than a 1 year officer. I think a 4 and 5 and 6 year firefighter is more valuable than a 1 year firefighter. I don't know if I agree with that on a 4 and 5, 6 year weed eater, maybe equipment operator. I can make an argument that a better experienced operator is better, but ask me, in our non-bargaining positions we don't get the compression issues like we do within a public safety group. So, very long answer to an easy question is I would say 3 to 4 weeks is what I would hope. I would hope to be able to put a proposal by the end of June. But I don't know that. I don't know if the CM will have marching orders on how much money I am to use. I can tell you this, I mean, I'm not waiting, twiddling my thumbs, waiting to see how much money they're going to give me. I'm working with Wayne and my staff to figure out if we get 2, what does it look like? If we get 3, what does it look like? If we get 3.5, what does it look like? If we get 2 to use in October 1 and 2 to use in April, where the cost for the year is 3%, but in your grocery dollars it's 4% for the fiscal year, you know, that changes how I can divvy up that money too. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I shared some things with Bob and Joel before we came in. That we weren't negotiating in bad faith, but I just wanted to show them that I do have salary ranges, and that we did a salary survey from the surrounding areas. Every agency in Volusia County, for police and fire for that matter. So I have that. We're trying to look at that. We don't want to be in the bottom tier of agencies in Volusia County. And until we're one of the top tiers in Volusia County, why even consider what we are in Central Florida and then statewide? I mean, there's no, if we're not even in the top rung in our own community where I draw from my applicant pool, I don't care what St. Lucie County pays necessarily at the end of the day. I don't know that I'm recruiting from their area. Martin, I can't compete with Martin County and the southern area. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. So, you know, we're going to be putting together, by looking at those salary surveys, what we think our minimum is going to be. So that right away affects, what I say, like 96 people that have less than, oh no, that was over 8 years. So I don't know how many are under 1 and 2 years, probably 30 or 40. So that, if I raise my minimum $2,000 a year, that's already 60,000. That compounds, because that means every one of those guys has to get that new minimum. Now I'm still compressed. So now what do I do with the 8-year guy, the 7-year guy, 6-year guy, 5-year guy? So what we might have to do is, over the course of, not a 3-year deal, but over the course of 3 years, get there. But I don't think I'm going to be allowed, nor would I recommend at this point, unless I hear something different, I'm not going to be solid in recommending something that that would tie the city to 2 more years of raises that are in a collective bargaining agreement that we would be obligated to make without knowing what the certainty of the future. I mean, we all hear there's going to be big hotels, but I haven't seen any dirt moving yet. So, I mean, they're on the books, they're approved, it's moving, Tanger Outlets, Hard Rock Cafes, One Daytona, Daytona Rising, etc. I mean, a lot of exciting stuff, but those revenues aren't hitting the books yet. So what I don't want to do, 3-year worth of deal, then God forbid something happens in the economy, new war, God forbid, something happens and the economy goes in the tanker and I've got 2 years more worth of contract that we've got to satisfy and no way to get out of it. So my position right away is I'm going to be looking for a 1 year. We'll certainly entertain a 3-year, but it would almost need to be like a 1 year, here's what we're getting. 2 is no changes, which has a plus for you guys. If you're concerned about pension and all that, you get a 3-year deal that basically changes nothing in the contract for year 2 and 3 except for COLA/raises or whatever you want to call them, then we would entertain a 3-year deal because it's not tying me to any money.
Okay. Well, obviously we won't do it here, but what I'd like to do, perhaps by early part of next week, at least schedule, another time to get together.
I agree.
And
Let's
if
get
you
it on
can't
the
make
calendar.
Then you can't make it, but, go ahead, Bob.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Okay. The
Crime suppression.
crime suppression team. They were on the list last year, they may have been on the list the year prior. I know the chief considers CST a branch of patrol.
Are they 42?
They're 40.
40 hours.
They are 40 hours.
In talking with Jay Marr in the past, he advises that though they might be considered part of patrol, their hours are all in that. They might come in at 4 o'clock in the morning, they might come in at 2, they might come in on holidays, so they have to make a lot of sacrifices. They're out there, and we consider them specialized. So we're putting that back out there. And
Well, they're the street level narcotics unit. They're the vice squad. They're the burglary suppression squad. They basically handle a multitude of issues that come up throughout the year. So I would consider them a specialized unit because they're trained in all these different areas that not necessarily all officers are, especially doing the prostitution stuff, the quality of life issues.
stacking language on the attachment of the packet.
I know what is that your proposal from last year where if I'm on
Yes.
multiple units, I don't get 5 and 5, I get a total of 7?
Yeah, if you're on the motor and you're a SWAT sniper, you get 5 for your first assignment, 2 for your second cap.
You won't exceed, because right now technically you would get the 1250 and whatever this other stipend. So if you're in CID, just for arguments, I don't know if this happens, but if you're in CID, you're getting that 5% stipend and you're designated SWAT, like I said, I don't know if that happens, but you would be eligible for the 1250. Well, you're saying assuming everybody's at a 5% stipend, 5% stipend this, if I'm on multiple units, I get 7 is the best I'm gonna get.
Using percentages, yes, not stipends.
Right, yeah, 10-4, I understand.
FTO pay. We went through this last year,
Yep.
and the argument we used then is the same.
And just so you know, on that cost proposal I gave you, we costed out, if I raised it from $1 to $1.50 or $1 to $2. So as you can see, at the bottom of that paper, it's $20,000 to raise FTOs from $1 to $1.50 an hour, and it's $40,248 to raise them from $1 to $2. Again, that's including their 42 hours. That's, with the built-in overtime, that's the true cost. I mean, it'd be more than that, because they're working more than the 42, it's more than that. I mean,
Our argument is if you want really good trainers, and that's who comes in contact with these new people coming in the door, your trainers, you got to incentivize them.
that's right.
Recall our last arbitration, the chief was sitting there and saying he had no idea that Justin Rana was an FTO. And some of the people were upset about that, making him an FTO. If you want the cream of the crop, training your new officers, I think you have to incentivize it. A dollar is just not enough. Those are the complaints I'm hearing. So,
Okay.
we'll
I understand the proposal.
placing that back on the table.
Yep.
This is last year. Great increase in air miles.
It's right now 5.
Right.
Is this your similar proposal from last
That's
year
the
that you'd like
same
to go to?
exact proposal,
Okay.
moving it to 10 air miles. And beyond that, adding a fuel stipend, if your costs are the real problem. Take-home cars, that's recruitment. You get people come out of rookie school, they say, hey, Daytona's got a take-home car, they've got this, they've got that, I'm going to Daytona.
Okay.
I didn't change anything in that.
Okay. Yeah, I glanced it over. It looks like the same as last year.
PL sellback, the same as last year. We asked him to bump it back to 80. You guys were not interested last year. now that you have a one-for-one buyback in your system. you know, the old-
Payout.
Right.
Yeah, upon your separation.
The argument was, do you want to buy the hours back now when the employee's at 7 years? Or do you want to buy those hours back when he's at 25? So the cost is, to you, so. I think
Yeah,
last
pay me
year.
now or pay me later.
Right?
Or we fix the fact that we have a high payout.
It benefits you guys to go to those.
Sometimes you don't have a accrual problem, you have a payout problem.
Safe driving incentive, number 10, we've gone over that before, I've submitted it before. I understand the chief likes this.
Is that what you understand?
That's what I'm being told.
I've heard you have a comprehension problem.
I heard the chief looked at this and said, wow, this is great, I can implement this. And then Frank said, yeah, Bob Walker thought it up, and he said,
No!
it sucks.
Hey, start telling them Joel.
Does he like anything more than Bob?
Start telling them Joel made up stuff. And that's when Sexton goes, no!
Same thing, a full year without an at-fault crash,
I'm with you.
12 hours of
12 hours
compensation.
of pay.
Number 11, bilingual pay.
That's new.
We want it.
I had nothing to
Is this
do
the
with
Diaz
that.
clause?
I had nothing to do with that one.
When Danny saw
Ay,
it,
caramba! That's all I
That's the first thing I said to him when he called me about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're gonna think it was me. I had nothing to do with this.
when Danny saw that, he says, everybody's gonna look at me. Bilingual pay will allow you to recruit from minorities.
Possibly.
I understand there's a bunch of officers who speak languages, second languages, and are called to interpret on occasions. I believe the college has a way to certify someone in case there's any doubt as to someone's proficiency with a second language, because we're asking that you be able to read, write, and interpret in order to get the stipend or the 2%.
You know of any other agency off the top of your head that might have some type of language like that now? I'm not saying we're not going to be innovative. I'm not against being
Right.
a leader in something.
I
just
believe
wondered
the
if they
land
were-
does, I gotta check. We're trying for it in Osceola.
Other high Hispanic population areas maybe already have something like that?
And
I mean, and it says here second language. I imagine the Japanese, ability to interpret Japanese would not be necessarily useful, so.
We have a training now. We have a training now who's Arabic.
um,
But a
Reads it,
language
writes
that's,
it.
right, a language that's.
You have a trainee now. That,
He's a,
Is that what
yeah,
you
he's
said?
in
Yeah.
he's training right now. He's in the FTO phase, and that's his first language. I mean, he can read it, he can write it, he can speak it.
So I can understand the city would want to probably limit this proposal if they're interested in specific languages that make sense for the population.
I know Pig Latin.
Exactly. And on the FTO issue, I mean,
I speak text.
Oh, sorry.
Text. GL. What?
to include sign language, or signing to, interpreting to the deaf. I didn't put that on the handout, but we can certainly include that. Our suspension language, number 12, is the same as last year. We're just asking that we allow the discipline route to go full cycle before we issue suspensions. Suspensions, it's a punishment to the employee, but sometimes it punishes the guys in the zones to the left and the right, because if you suspend Joel, now Les and I have to get out there and double up our work. Sometimes suspensions are overturned, but they're overturned later, down the road, 6-8 months later. But you can't go back and keep those guys from, you can't get in the time machine. They work their butts off that day. So all we're asking is you allow the discipline route to go the whole way before a suspension is served out.
I hear you. And I know we discussed this a little bit last year, and refresh my memory. Is this through arbitration or through step 3 of the grievance process? I want to say you guys were saying through arbitration last year.
Yeah.
And therein lies, without names, got a case coming up. It's rolling up on a year. By the time you go through the grievance process internally, get an arbitrator on board, may or may not have to reschedule based on attorneys and witnesses, availability, you end up a year down the road. So it literally could be a year down the road before somebody who is disciplined serves their suspension.
Well, yeah. You could have an arbitrator come in and overturn the case. I don't believe this person should have been suspended.
I agree.
But you can't get in a time machine and go back because you got everybody on the zones humping for 10 days.
And they do, if I recall, they do try to work within a shift. They don't just suspend somebody to make sure they're short-staffed where it costs them an overtime or, causes a burden or too much. It's obviously going to be a burden. You're going to be short at least one person. But, I think if that particular shift has already got somebody out on light-duty workers' comp, somebody out on FML, I don't know that they go, hey, serve your suspension, and now that little group is down from, 8 to 12 to down to 5. I don't know that they do that. Listen, I understand the proposal. Basically, you're saying before you implement a suspension,
it goes the whole
let it
way.
ride, let it roll its course through the administrative process to the bitter end. And one of the things we discussed last year, it gives you absolute incentive to file a grievance even on a matter that you believe is absolutely frivolous from inception, because it's like, well, all I can do, it's November 15th, I can stall this thing out through the holiday season, and at least you won't serve your suspension until February next year, because I can drag this out far enough to get you through that or whatever.
But at some point, the employee pays the piper.
I hear you.
It's a due process.
Assuming the arbitrator, or the way it works now, the city pays the piper.
Correct.
So if we go in front of an arbitrator, or we end up resolving the matter down the road, there's usually back pay involved of some sort, or so we end up paying the piper anyway. But I hear you. It doesn't stop the fact that that shift was short for that period of time while that person was out, and everybody else had to pick up the slack on that shift.
It was just like the labor management meeting we had a month ago. The walking beats for car crashes. I certainly understand the chief's idea, and I understand the method to the madness, but you put someone on a walking beat, everybody else in the zones around them are humping calls.
I hear you.
You're punishing the whole, the whole shift or the whole.
Well, who's
segment.
ordering the code red, man? I want that stricken from the record. We don't do code reds.
Lastly, I think you and I, we all need to work together to incentivize being a Daytona officer again. I'm on the phone with a lot of folks constantly. I hear a lot of complaining, a lot of griping. And I was just looking at a roster the other day, and this is just the last several months. You got Weber, Sten, Cicero, Martin, Derlith, Robinson, Jones, Heller, Burns, Ferrari, Elliott, Galante, Plow, Robbins, Cassidy, Buckland, Almeida, Killian. And I'm hearing Joey Snowden's putting his paperwork in, and Alcino's leaving. And that's like 350 years worth of experience leaving in like 60 to 90 days. I think we have to incentivize being a Daytona cop again. This was once a really great agency. There's a lot of great people
It
here.
still is a really great agency.
This is FDLE's website from 2013. The 2014 numbers are not up yet. We lead the league in attrition with 19. You would literally have to add the next 4 agencies together.
Well, how many people's leaving? Well, listen, they're not all good leaves, if you will. Listen, there's good leaves, and that's somebody who's done their 20 plus year, did their drop, whatever, riding off in the sunset. That's good attrition. There's those that are leaving for the other agencies. That's the bad attrition because we can't retain them. And then there's those that we said hit the brakes. I mean, so, we've got that as well. And one of the arguments, well, if we're the top paying agency and the top benefited agency, we won't have to worry about the bottom of the barrel applying at the city of Daytona Beach. So we won't have to worry about hiring those that may not make it through their FTO program. Because I think one of the arguments I'm hearing from the other side, if you will, is that because our pay, and I think we've all acknowledged, I don't know that our bottom pay is necessarily the problem, our top pay is not the problem, it's what's happened within that. So if I'm still a 6-year guy here, I literally could go to Ormond and make $4K more, or $5K more. As a 1-year officer for them, and I'm a 4 or 5-year officer for us. I agree with that's the problem. So I think what we can do over time is address some of the attrition. I know going to a 25-year pension plan from the 20 was a big move. It's one I think needed to be made for the cost aspect of it in the long term. Every county that's under FRS special risk is a 25-year agency with a 5-year drop. That's what we are now. Every county agency under the FRS is a 3% multiplier. That's what we are now.
But you're talking an agency that pays 10.9 into that pension every week. And that's a known fact. That's why people know that.
I don't disagree with you that the employees contribute a nice portion, certainly a reasonable portion. 10% to your own pension plan is good from a city perspective. I'm sure you guys think differently. But, and you're right, under FRS, I'm only contributing 3% to mine. I have a 2% multiplier. Wayne and Linda have a 1.6 multiplier. They're paying 3% for that. So it is different. There's a disability benefit there. So listen, I get the proposal. I'm telling you, we're going to work with you guys to figure out what will be the best way to try to come to terms. I can't promise anything today, but my foreseeable negotiations for this year, I have been given no indication that we're looking at messing with pension benefits. We've made those changes, yes, Les?
Yeah, if I could just throw one quick thing out. In 2010, under FRS, they changed the guidelines in reference to COLA. It was to
Yes.
start minimizing.
That's
So
right.
you had a mass group of FRS law enforcement officers going to drop.
Yeah.
This year,
Yeah.
they're gone. And they're going to be paying any new hires, only contribute 3%. So your pool to draw from is going to be shrunken even more because every FRS law enforcement agency has a little better benefit than you have right now. So if you have a high attrition rate now, you have a lot of vacancies now, now's the time to address this because starting within the next 6 months,